Bruins introducing their new head coach, Jim Montgomery, today. The big question, though, is Montgomery taking over a rebuild or a team that's trying to get back to the Stanley Cup Finals? Bruins CEO Chiarelli Jacobs giving a clear answer on that today.
I think that would be awfully difficult to sell in this market to our fan base. We're a cap team, meaning that we're going to spend to the max to deliver the best product we possibly can to our fans. And that is not going to change. In that regard, I would hope that people could put that in their back pocket and understand that we are committed to winning a Stanley Cup, and we will do whatever it takes to get us to that threshold again.
Sorry, I'm just laughing a little bit because, hi, Trenni Kusnierek here with DJ Beat and Phil Perry back from, well, rested and tanned after a nice vacation. I'm just laughing because if you would have done everything that you wanted to do to get back to a Stanley Cup, you probably would have fired your general manager a long time ago and found someone instead who could rebuild your farm system so you had someone to replace, I don't know, Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci and Brad Marchand and Zdeno Chara and all these guys who are no longer here.
And you end up saying we're a cap team. I would hope you're a cap. If you're spending $5 million on David Backes a year or giving Nick Foligno $3.8 million a year, I hope that you're a cap team. I mean, you're spending your money so frivolously, but you also end up being a cap team, Trenni and Phil, when you're not drafting well and you need to bring in and overpay people because, as I was saying last week, you're just trying to have some semblance of a roster. Now, if you want to be a cap team that's really, really good, like Tampa, who drafts well, has star players, even cheats on the cap, cool, that's great, but we're a cap team isn't a badge of honor if you're spending to the cap and the roster's not that good.
How about the fans wouldn't be able to buy a rebuild here in Boston? Because I don't think he's wrong about that. I'm not sure Bruins fans have the appetite for a total tear-down, rebuild, bottom of the league, try to find a superstar at the top of the draft and just start this whole thing fresh again. I'm not sure that is the right direction. I think that's where a lot of people want to go. They just want to rip the Band-Aid off. But it's easier said than done, in my opinion, when you're sitting through those types of seasons, DJ.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Like, you could very easily become the Senators, although the Senators look like they're getting better now. But you could be a team that's bad for the better part of, like, 20 years if you really say, okay, we're going to strip it down to the studs and we'll just figure it out. The issue, like, a big reason why I think people wouldn't put up with a rebuild right now is because they're clearly just never going to get rid of Cam Neely and Don Sweeney. And if they do some sort of rebuild and those guys are in charge, they are a proven commodity when it comes to drafting. And that is to say, they have proven they are not good at it. So if you do some sort of rebuild and you say, okay, let's get a bunch of draft picks, let's take our shots in the draft. Yeah, as a Bruins fan, I wouldn't want that if the guys that are making the picks stink at it.
And of course, you're not going to be happy if you have to tear it down to the studs and rebuild it, because it shouldn't have come to that. If you had the right people in place, you would have made moves along the way. Maybe that means trading for someone, but also trading for picks, right? Like doing a Bill Belichick thing, getting rid of a guy a year too early rather than a year too late. But instead, now you're stuck in this position, which brings us to Chris Gasper, who just went right at him today, right in front of their faces, asking the Jacobs why it was Bruce Cassidy that got fired and not Don Sweeney.
Boston Bruins have been to Stanley Cup Finals 3 times in the past 11 years under Cam Neely's tenure. And I want to say that we have somewhere around a 600-plus winning percentage under our general manager's tenure. The head coach is, frankly, the responsibility of the general manager, in our opinion, and he has to be accountable for that. And likewise, the president is accountable to the general manager. So if they come to us and say, hey, listen, we think this might be in the best interest, we're, of course, going to follow their lead.
So if you're showing your work and you're saying we've been to the Stanley Cup Final 3 times in the last 11 years, who was the GM for those teams? Then why'd you get rid of Peter Chiarelli? Peter Chiarelli was the GM for 2 of those teams. And this is not like a defense of they should have never fired him, but if that's going to be your excuse that, hey, look, we haven't been so bad over the last 11 years, but there were still changes that needed to be made. You've done a lot of good things in spite of the way that you've built these teams. And you saw certainly at the end of the Chiarelli era, there was a lot of what the Bruins are doing right now, which is just desperately trying to hold on to guys and paying them a little bit more to get them to stay. We'll see what Patrice Bergeron ends up getting because you're not drafting well and you can't replace players.
Well, and Trenni, it's not like the head coach's record when Bruce Cassidy was here was all that bad either. I mean,
No.
they're making the playoffs over and over and over again. So if you want to, match resumes, you could do that if you're Bruce Cassidy sitting in Vegas right now looking at this press conference and saying, what is going on here? That to me, though, was the kind of answer that I expected throughout today, which was passing of the buck. Well, that's really Don's decision, and we trust Don, and so let's let Don do his thing.
And Don answers to Cam, and Cam and Don are the closest of friends and former roommates. So it just seems like there isn't a whole lot of accountability no matter where you go on the chain of command. All right, coming up, I did a little detective work over the weekend to learn if Malcolm Brogdon would accept a reduced